episode of the Crime with Kylie podcast. And Happy New Year! At the time that I'm recording this, it is January 1st of 2024. So this is the first episode of the new year. And if this is your first time watching, hi, hello. On this channel, we try to talk about true crime cases, missing persons cases, murders, etc. in the most respectful way possible to give you guys the most information. The ultimate goal with this channel is to spread awareness and hopefully get justice for the victims' families, and their friends. Now for today's episode, we are going to be talking about Ana Walshe. And Ana Walshe is a missing person. She has actually been missing since New Year's Day, January 1st of 2023. However, sadly, it is likely that when they find Ana, they will just find her body because her husband, Brian Walshe, is being tried and convicted of her murder. And as we go throughout this episode, you will see why, from the circumstantial evidence to the solid evidence, why that is the case. Without further ado, let's get into it. Ana was an absolutely stunning and successful woman living in Boston, Massachusetts. She was 39 years old, she was married to a man named Brian Walshe, and she had 3 beautiful sons. Their ages are 6, 4, and 2. Now, Boston was the closest city to where Ana lived, but specifically she lived in Cohasset. Cohasset, Massachusetts has a cost of living index of 143.4, which means that the total cost of housing, food, childcare, transportation, healthcare, taxes, and other necessities is 43.4% higher than the US national average. And the average home there costs $1.1 million. And even renting a small 2-bedroom home there costs an average of $2,800 a month. To live there comfortably, a family has to bring in an annual income of at least $219,000. So from the outside, Ana seemed to have a really great life, and her co-worker said that she always kept business business and personal personal. She did not confide in them about personal issues or anything like that. But what is important to note is that in 2014, Ana actually went to the police with a concern, and she said that an unidentified man threatened to kill her. And now it's come out from police that that unidentified man was most likely Brian Walshe. And for context, the two of them got married in 2015. So at the time that they were married, Ana was 31 years old and Brian was 38. Now he is presently 46 years old. The two of them actually got married in Serbia, and Ana was from Serbia. That is where she grew up and had her childhood. An important thing to note is that Ana worked really hard for everything that she had. All the success in life, she was actually one of those very rare people who was truly self-made, because she moved from Serbia to Massachusetts, and then she got a job at the Wheatley Hotel. Ana started off at the hotel as a housekeeper, and then a server, and then a reservations manager, and then an assistant manager. So Ana, it's very clear on her resume that she worked her way up the ladder. She was not given any hands up, she was not taking any shortcuts in life. And then as Ana worked her way through different hotels on the East Coast, because she would go from Washington, D.C. to Massachusetts to D.C., she then eventually got into real estate. And not like, you know, your mom's a real estate agent type of real estate. Like, no. She got into the major buildings, Rockefeller buildings, skyscrapers, things like that, like multi-million-dollar type of deals. And she was making these deals while raising her sons. Like, I only have the one child, and that is a lot on top of, you know, doing the whole entrepreneurship route. So the fact that she had 3 sons, each of them just 2 years apart, she is beyond impressive. Brian Walshe, however, is what my generation would call a nepo baby, because he was the son of a very well-renowned neurosurgeon. So the wealth that he had, he inherited it from his daddy. I believe his adult job titles on LinkedIn are a international business strategist, as well as a chief financial officer. Now, it was on January 4th of 2023 that anyone realized that something was amiss. Ana's boss called the authorities to do a welfare check on Ana when she did not show up for work. And right off the bat, this is extremely suspicious for Brian Walshe, because why would he not report his wife missing? Why was it her employer, of all people? Not to mention, this was 3 days after the fact of her going missing. So essentially the night of New Year's Eve, so December 31st of 2022, Brian Walshe, Ana Walshe were home, and they were home with one other friend. Not a big extravagant party, but it was just the 3 of them. So that friend saw Ana Walshe that very same night. However, it was in the early morning hours of January 1st of 2023 that Ana would go missing. Now, Brian Walshe initially told the authorities that he was sleeping in and his wife slipped out of the house early to go catch a flight. Ana was going between Massachusetts and Washington, D.C., so he said that she was going to the Logan airport to catch a flight. And Brian claimed that this was entirely random and that Ana had woke up and told him that there was a work emergency. and that is why she had to go and fly to DC. Like, this flight had not been scheduled previously, this was not in the plans, she was not supposed to go, but there was an emergency, so she was. And when Brian said that this was early, he was talking about between 6 and 7 a.m. because apparently the friend who came over left around 1 a.m. and then they went to bed as a couple shortly after that. However, there were no texts of, honey, I've arrived at the airport, on the flight, back from the flight, no texts of Brian even checking on her. So that's very suspicious to not hear from your wife and then not report her missing or be concerned whatsoever. And by the time that authorities arrived at their home, it had been 3 days. 3 days since Ana Walshe had been heard from or seen. And Brian was just spouting off lies to them right and left. He said that on January 2nd of 2023, he left the house to go get a smoothie. However, what he failed to mention is that he went to Home Depot and was caught on security camera footage buying $450 worth of cleaning supplies. And Brian's story about what happened after Ana left that morning was just even more suspicious because he started it off just, normal by saying that he made his 3 sons breakfast, and then he went to the grocery store, did some shopping, and then he drove all the way across the bay to where his mother lived. However, he said that he didn't bring his phone with him, so there was no tracking information to prove that those were his whereabouts. It was just hearsay. And he didn't just say that he misplaced his phone, he actually tried to blame this on his 3 sons, one of the 3 sons, by saying that one of them hid his phone and he just didn't find it, didn't look for it until the very next day. Which, if you're in the corporate world especially, your phone is your lifeline, and even for me, I know if my daughter takes my phone, runs away with it, I'm calling it, I'm having my husband call it, I'm searching, I'm turning the entire house upside down to look for my phone. Yes, I have a problem. I'm attached to that thing. I shouldn't be, but most adults are, so it's very strange that he was just okay driving so many distances, driving so many places, going about his life without his phone. So many people about this case have commented on how stupid Brian Walshe is, and after doing the research, I'm starting to see why 1000%, because on top of losing his phone, going all these places, not finding his phone for 2 days, he also said that on his way to go see his mother, he got lost, which you're going to your mother's house. You've been there 1,000,001 times. GPS is a thing. I call bullshit. So now flash forward to the night of January 4th of 2023. The Cohasset community is now aware that Ana Walshe is missing, and Cohasset, which I might have mispronounced earlier, sorry about that, is a very small, tight-knit community, about 10,000 people, I believe. So they held a vigil, people are talking, people are just wanting her to come home because they're like, where is she? What happened? Did she just want a break? Etc. So the community banded together to look for her. And Ana beyond loved her 3 sons, so it was very strange and unlikely that she would just leave on her own accord and not come back. Now let's talk about Brian Walshe a little bit more and what we know about his past. So aside from being what my generation would call a nepo baby, he was also a thief and a criminal. So I didn't know too much about art prior to this video, but in 2016, Brian actually tricked a Los Angeles art seller into buying 2 fake Andy Warhol paintings. And these paintings can go up to $10,000 or more a piece, and I think a set in 2021 called Endangered Species, or a collection, was listed for $1.8 million. And prior to frauding the art dealer, at some point Brian actually did have the real Andy Warhol paintings. He stole them from a friend of his. And for this transaction, the art dealer literally bought tickets to fly from Los Angeles to Massachusetts. They made the transaction there. The art dealer gave him a cashier's check of $80,000. Brian deposited it instantly, and then the art dealer flew back to Los Angeles with the faux paintings. When the art dealer got home and looked at the paintings, he realized that he had been scammed because these paintings did not have the branded stamp or the signatures they were supposed to have. They look completely different. I'll show you what they looked like on the screen, the real one versus the fake ones. And so he, of course, tried to contact Brian, and Brian did not answer his phone, he did not respond. So the art dealer got in contact with his mother, and then the art dealer then got in contact with Ana Walshe, and he called Ana Walshe while she was at work, and Ana was apparently very kind about it and told her husband, and her husband, Brian, then emailed the art dealer some absolute BS, and it's very corporate talk, thank you for getting in contact with my wife. She told me that you were very kind and respectful, blah, blah, blah. Let's not get lawyers involved. and then ended it by asking, I believe, for his Bank of America information, so that way he could just like wire the $80,000 back to him. And he said that there must have been some mix-up, just send him back the paintings, he had the real ones, da-da-da-da-da. Like, he was just trying to claim that he was just as confused and swindled here as the artist was, or as the art dealer was. And although Brian promised to refund the art dealer through the bank system, he never got his money back. And Brian just kept giving like BS responses like, you know how like the banking system is, transactions take a long time, especially that amount, da-di-da-di-da. And like, the art dealer was being like so patient, which is so surprising because, you know, 80 grand is a ton of money, and was just being very respectful, like, hey, where's my money? Where's my money? Just following up with him. Finally, this art dealer was only able to get $30,000 out of Brian, and so the art dealer got in contact with the FBI, and the FBI took the investigation from there. And then in 2021, Brian pleaded guilty to those charges. He was thoroughly investigated for wire fraud. And keep in mind the timeline here, Brian and Ana had got married just a year prior in 2015, so things were not looking good. 2014, some unidentified man threatens to kill Ana. 2015, they get married. 2016, he's then frauding this art dealer out of $8,000. So Ana, for whatever reason, I mean, maybe she was just, I wouldn't blame her at all, because it seems like she could have very well been scared of Brian, wrote a letter to the judge trying to tell the judge to take it easy on Brian, and then Brian is a man of really good character. And Brian did get a very lenient sentence from this. He was just put under house arrest, and then he had to pay the $80,000 back. And he was also under house arrest at the time that Ana went missing. So as part of being under house arrest, you have to have these pre-approved plans, like, you know, places that you can go, at times that you go to those places, etc. Now let's get back to Ana Walshe. So the authorities got a warrant to search their home, and in the basement of their home they found a bloody knife. Additionally, the devices in the home were confiscated and the search histories were gone through. And these search histories, oh my gosh, those are beyond concerning and screams murder. And Brian really must have thought that he was smart, because he used his oldest son's iPad to do these Google searches. These searches happened in the early hours of New Year's Day, and they were things like, how long does a body take before it starts to smell? How to dismember a body? How to dispose of a body of an 115-pound woman. I don't know why he would be searching those things other than the obvious of he murdered his wife, Ana Walshe. Authorities asked him why these Google searches would be on his son's iPad, and then they asked him how smart his son was, if he was of average intelligence, and Brian responded with, I'd like to think so. And the thing is, Brian, furthering his Neanderthalness, none of the words were misspelled, and a 6-year-old cannot spell those words. The average 6-year-old, even the above average 6-year-old. There was not a single typo. So it was these searches, combined with the bloody knife, combined with Brian's really weird itinerary for the past 4 days his wife had been missing, 3 days, 4 days, that led to the authorities arresting him and charging him for misleading the investigation. And that was on January 8th of 2023. And by the way, Brian pled not guilty to misleading the investigation. And it was only 10 days later, on January 18th of 2023, that Brian would be charged in connection to his wife's murder, despite no body was ever found. So some of Ana's belongings with her DNA on them were found in a trash facility disposed of. Detectives also found trash bags with her blood, a rug, cleaning supplies, a hatchet, and a hacksaw. These items were found at a transfer facility in Peabody, a town 46 miles away from Cohasset. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, that is where he was instead of visiting his mother, because the distance that he would travel would be about the same. And hypothetically, if they could track his car or track him in any way, that could explain his excuse of getting lost. Now at this point, the very sad truth is that their 3 young sons lost both of their parents within a very short amount of time, within an 18-day span. They were placed into the custody of the state's Family and Children's Services. And Ana's friend Skye thankfully advocated for her children, because the state were actually going to separate the 3 boys into different foster homes, but because of her, they stayed together. And with the made-up lie of Ana going to catch a flight at the Logan airport, authorities were very thorough, and there were no records of a flight leaving for DC that morning, let alone a flight for Ana. Presently, exactly 1 year later, Brian is still fighting for his innocence. Not that that actually exists. He is pleading not guilty in court despite all of the evidence against him. More and more evidence just seems to pile against him. More of Anna's belongings were found disregarded in a dumpster right across the street from his mother's house in Swampscott, Massachusetts. These items were Anna's Volkswagen keys, Anna's COVID vaccination card, a Hermes watch, and a Gucci necklace that Anna was known to wear, hunter boots, a black Prada purse, and a short black coat. Now here's where we're going to talk about motive. Brian Walshe hired a private investigator, private detectives, to prove that his wife was cheating. And I think an important note to add here is not only did Brian Walshe hire a private investigator for this purpose, but so did his mother. They hired this private investigator to follow her around her job as a real estate executive in Washington, D.C. Brian's lawyer has said that the private investigator to trail Anna was all his mother's idea and that he told her to go ahead because she would be proven wrong. Now, authorities do believe that Ana Walshe was having a months-long affair in Washington, D.C. when she would frequently go there to travel for work. And apparently this stemmed from her relationship with Brian being very strained. And it became strained after the whole art fraud investigation. And apparently on December 28th of 2022, Anna cried to some of her friends in Washington, D.C. that she was afraid that Brian was going to go to jail and that she planned to move herself and her 3 sons to Washington, D.C. The man that she was allegedly having an affair with has not been publicly identified, but apparently he did speak to the authorities and confirm their relationship and said that it had just started to get more serious and that she was planning on leaving her husband. And apparently the two of them, Anna and her unidentified lover, had plans to celebrate the New Year's together on January 4th of 2023. And I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but infidelity is not a reason for murder, it's a reason for divorce, if anything. But to murder her and then to not confess to it, to plead not guilty, he's just dragging this out. The last thing that is alleged for motive is that Anna had a life insurance policy of $2.7 million that Brian was the sole beneficiary of. It's also thought that Brian just really resented his wife and was jealous because he was the sole caretaker of his 3 children. And because he was under house arrest, Anna got to go live her life the way that she wanted to, and he couldn't. He was just stuck at home. I mean, he did that to himself, but you can see how the resentment would occur. Even though Anna also held up her weight because she was the sole breadwinner. She was the breadwinner of the family. She brought home the money, she kept the house good, she did it all. The last thing I have to say here is that there should be an update in this case soon because Brian Walshe's next court appearance occurs this month in January of 2024. If you guys made it this far through the episode, thank you so much, and I will see you guys soon.